So hello everyone, good morning. Today we are going to continue with the recruitment management classes. And in the last class, I was explaining about the prerequisites that we should know about before you start learning about recruitment. And even I was explaining about the the use of the XML templates throughout our recruitment management. So every time that when you are going to set up and you start working on, and we have to set up the initially the system setup, same like our employee central. So here also today we are going to concentrate starting with the provisioning settings. So here in the backend tool provisioning system, we have some baseline configurations. They are very critical for your successful configurations in a recruitment management. See, but here in again in a provisioning, the initial setup that one you are going to do, we have required settings and we have optional settings also. We will concentrate on critical settings and some of the optional settings for a recruitment today. And that means a simple question is like, which provisioning settings are required? So that's the first simple question we should have. And again, the thing is, what is the recommended state of provisioning settings? But I think this is the best question that we should have every time. But even but here also I was telling you that same like our employee central, we have some XML templates that we have explained you that the list of XML templates we are going to work on in a recruitment in the coming classes. But initially, as I told you, that you have to go and set up and you have to go and download in the corresponding SAP sites. But now, so let us try to log into the provisioning, and then we will try to continue with the topics required to enable the provisioning settings for recruitment. So now just come and log into your provisioning, the backend tool, and click on your company name. And you can just go and click on your company settings. So when you click on your company settings, and same like you'll find a lot of switches here as you just scroll down from top to bottom. And but these are all as you know that in success factors we have so many products. And in the for some of about how to work on provisioning for employee central. The same way, we also have a section same like your employee central, and we also have a separate section for recruitment at the bottom. You can just scroll down. Since you have so many settings here, it's very difficult to go and waste a lot of time here, but rather the best recommended approach to look for the settings that you want to enable is a control F, and you can just use a control F at the top, and that will help you to look for. And now you can just see that we have navigated to the recruitment section, and it is there almost at the bottom. You can just see the scrolling option. So the first of all, we will concentrate now the beginning with the critical settings. I told you right that we are going to start with the critical settings and optional settings for recruitment to set up your recruitment management system to for all your further recruitment configurations in your instance. So the first option that I'm going to enable is a there is something called question object management. You can just see that it is there here and that I have just highlighted. And of course, this is already enabled with a checkbox, and you don't need to go and disable or enable once again. Since it is already enabled, you have to go and enable. So why this setting has to be enabled as a question object management? Because this is a required as a every time when you enable some settings in employee central, there is an option like it requires as a prerequisite to enable that configuration, like a dependency configurations. The same way for recruitment, to enable this object management or question object management is required to enable recruitment management. So once you enable, and you can just go and scroll to the top of the option, and you can just go and click on it, enter your company ID, and click on confirm the changes. So once you click on that, automatically whatever the settings that you are trying to enable with the check boxes, they are going to be active. So that's how the process of enabling each setting, one by one, but multiple you enable, and you can save it at the end also, not a problem, and you verify it once again. So you can just see that the setting has been enabled. So the another setting that we have to enable as a critical setting is a stack ranker, you know, and you can just see that I'm using the control F, so that immediately the system is giving you the options that we have. So the setting name is enable stack ranker style interview assessment. Suppose if you are going to use interview central, and if you want to enable in your instance, and this switch that enables stack ranker style interview assessment switch will enable the toolbar in your instance, and this stack ranker will show the candidates that what you call the candidates rank, who is the highest, the candidate ranks like who is the lowest, and where the employee can compare with the different users, that for which user is having the highest rating, for another user where he's having another rating. So we can compare as an end user, so where you can experience in the interview what you call central, if you are going to enable. So there you will have an option like stack ranker, the ranking for the candidates that who has performed well. So this feature is so critical if you are going to use in your system in the interview central. And let us move on to the another setting. There is something we will find it as a workbench. So now you can just see that another option which we have, enable candidate workbench, and of course it is already enabled. So as SuccessFactors recommends you to enable this feature, because if you want your system to perform a significant improvement in your user interface and the functionalities on your application or on your recruitment pages, so it's recommended best practice to as SAP is encouraging for all your existing clients to enable this switch in the test mode, and then once everything is properly working, and then you can switch on directly in a production system, so that it will help your clients for better performance, for the better improvement of your applications on all the list pages that we have on user interfaces. So that's why we have to enable. And you also have some of the options which are optional. It's up to you if you want to enable, and you can just go on. So we have another setting that we have to enable. There is something, let us see, there is agency advanced ownership setting, and at the bottom there are two settings that you can just see here. The first one is ownership for requisition, the ownership for a duration. See, usually the agencies, you have do you want to have the ownership based on the requisition, or you want to take the ownership for the certain period of time? So for example, if this requisition has been closed, then the ownership of this agency for this requisition has been completed. But in any organization, you will be having a number of requisitions, right? Not one. So you will be having one requisition closed, another one will be coming, a new requisition will be there, maybe country wise requisitions will be configured, or sample requisitions will be configured, some of the standard configurations also will be configured. Like that, you'll be having a number of requisitions, right? So, but the best option that we can go with a second one, ownership for a duration. So this sets the time period, when an agency is listed as the owner of the candidate in the database. If you want that agency should be the owner of the candidate in the database, so ownership for the duration is the best option. Or if you are going to set up this, you are only ownership for the particular requisition. So ownership for a duration is something you can set up like the period of time when an agency is listed as the owner of the candidate in the database. So that is why the second option is the recommended best option to go with for the advanced or agency advanced ownership setting. But it is up to you what option your client is opting for agency to switch on. So accordingly, we have to go and select. It is up to the client requirement. But the best one is the second one, where it encourages all the agencies to select or the agency ownership for the candidates to maintain the database based on the duration, not the requisition. So let us also, for example, when you are going to hire the candidates, what happens, right? Every time we have the possibility of uploading the resumes, right? Like the attachments. For example, if you want to allow the external candidates to upload the attachment, for example, in a Word format or PDF format, it supports absolutely. But there are certain formats it doesn't support. I will tell you what they are in the future classes. And even you can also upload your resume in a PDF format also. But you are uploading the attachment, right? So if you want to upload the attachment, so we need some storage allocation, right? So if there is no storage allocation, that a user cannot upload a resume, right? Or it's not only resume, there are a lot of other attachments like your previous experience, or your statements, or your certifications, or your academic certificates. You have to scan and upload in whichever format it supports, like Word format or PDF format, or PPT format also it supports. You can upload, but you have to specify, since this is a most relevant setting for recruitment, you have to enable. That's why it is critical setting. And if you remember, some of you, that we have already explained you the same setting even in employee central also. So that is why I'm just going to type the what do you call storage. I'm looking for keyword. So now you can just see that document attachment is section that you can just see that if you type here. So the first option is attachment storage allocation. So this is nothing but the upper limit to the storage attachment. The upper limit to the storage attachment, or the space allocated to the instance. What how much space that you want to allocate for the instance. So, but usually the best recommended setting is 1000 GB. Okay, this is the recommended, but here in my system it is there 1 GB. That's not recommended one. The best option is 1000 GB. And you can just see that attachment user limit. This is nothing but, I'm not talking about the lower limit. We are talking about the highest limit, upper limit. So this is something, attachment user limit is something like upper limit to the attachment storage, the space which is allocated to each individual user. For example, I am uploading a resume and you are uploading another attachment, and you are another XYZ is uploading another attachment. But each attachment storage allocation for individual user, which is upper limit, how much? But the best recommended approach, you have so many options here, but we don't know that we cannot restrict the users to upload only this much of their storage. That means only 2 pages or 1 page. We cannot say, right? Some people may be 5 years experience, some people may be more than that, will be having a number of options, right? So that is why we don't know each attachment will be how much the storage for the upper limit to the individual user will be. We are not sure, we are not certain, right? So the best recommended option is select as a no limit. So that's the best option you can select. And the another option we have, attachment maximum file size. The maximum size of the single attachment, that can be uploaded. So but this value is designed for the user. This one is, we don't know how many attachments we are going to upload for each user, right? But I explained in the wrong way, I'm sorry about it. This one is the upper limit of the storage allocation to the individual user, because you'll be uploading number of attachments, right? So that is why the best option is no limit. If you are going to put limit, and this option will not work again. So that is why attachment maximum file size. That means the maximum size of the single attachment that can be uploaded by the individual user. So here, for example, the attachment may be, the files can be video, the files can be audio, anything it may be. The size of the file, the recommended one is 5 MB. So there are only two options, 5M, 10M. So the recommended is 5M. So now let us move on to the another option, attachment limit notification period or notification monitor period. I think I explained already this option also last time, but still again we will explain this. So this is something where super administrators or your system administrators, the people who have the access to the what do you call, the file management storage feature in admin center. If your administrators or if your system administrators are having the access file storage, there is something called a file storage management feature. So in admin center, so you will see there, so suppose if you are an administrator or if you are a system administrator, super administrator, whoever you are, if you have the access, so that means these people will be having these people will be receiving the notification when the what do you call, company has almost hit the threshold of the 75% of your attachment storage allocation, that what you are specifying in the first option. That means when your 75% of your storage allocation has hit the threshold, the certain amount of the storage allocation what you specified in the first option, so these people, administrators, system administrators, should receive a notification, right, that your storage allocation, which is upper limit of the storage allocation, is almost hit 75%. So when this hit the 75% of your storage allocation, so your system administrators, the people who have the access to this storage allocation feature, will receive automatically a notification. So but when this will be notified, when the notification is turned on in the system every number of days. How? Like whether you want to notify when the storage allocation hit as 75%, in 1 day before, 3 days before, or 7 days, or never. But then the recommended option is 7 days. So this is one of the option that is recommended. And click on your save feature and enter it. Click on company, or sorry, confirm. So this is how, these are the some of the the prerequisites we have for our recruitment management. These are all critical settings that we have to enable. And of course RBP also is there. It's, of course, it is already enabled, so we don't need to go and worry again. So the thing is, now let us concentrate on what you call which are not critical. So whatever I explained you, some of the settings to enable for recruitment, they are all critical settings. And we have some of the settings which are not so critical, but still I will explain to you even those settings also. So the first option is one of the optional setting is manage users. Let us see. It's not coming. So let me control F. So it's not, so it's not responding. Maybe we need to load it. So just a moment. Click on company settings, and somewhere here at the top of this page only, you'll find one option as there is something that manage users. Let us see where it is located. Right. So now you can just see that there is another option that you have, manage users. And this is also if you want your, that enable the users in your admin center, so you can just go and enable. And what do you call, suppose since we are going to work on recruitment, sometimes there is a possibility like where we hire the external candidates, right? Usually that is the main scope, that sometimes you hire internal employees, sometimes you hire external employees, right? But how do you want the external candidates to register, right? So that is why I'm going to type something called so let us scroll down to the recruiting section. So now you can just see one particular option you have here: use email as external applicant user ID. But if you just see that this setting is already enabled, that means if enabled, this particular setting is enabled, that which is use email as external applicant user ID. That means the candidate's email address is going to be the username for external candidates. Use email as an external applicant user ID. So that means the candidate email address will be automatically the user ID or username of for the external candidate. Username usually in EC, how we create, maybe alphanumeric characters, maybe auto generation of the IDs, or manually you enter certain format what is requested by the client. So like that you usually create. Even when external candidate is registering to apply for that particular position, So then how they have to register, even there also you'll find a first name, last name, email ID, password, and everything. But the username field is going to be, if you enable this feature, email ID is automatically the user ID of that particular candidate. For example, if disabled, if this particular setting is disabled, then you may ask like, what is the user ID for the external candidate when they register? So that means the immediately the system will prompt, or it will prompt the user to create alphanumeric user ID manually. Automatically, the system will ask you to create the username of the candidate, which can be created or included the characters like alphanumeric characters. So that is why the best option is go with the email ID, so that automatically email ID for every candidate is going to be unique one. So that is why, this is another. Of course, it's not so critical whether you are going to use this feature, whether you don't use, automatically the system will go on work. If you are not going to use this feature, the system will ask you to create the user as a for external candidate with the username as alphanumeric. If it is enabled for a better scope, so use email ID as an external applicant user ID. And there is another thing that you can just see, enable job board posting. See, this should be always be enabled, because this setting is always allows you to what do you call this allows the job posting tab to the existing job requisition. And this feature, job board posting, interacts with the internet posting, or it interacts with a corporate posting, or it also interacts with the agency posting also. So that is why this also should be enabled, and you can just see we don't need to go and make any other changes. And there is another setting also we can enable, which is a enable mass copy job requisition. Suppose you have some requisitions, you already have the requisition created, and instead of every time you go and upload new requisition templates for country wise, but if you want to use, if you want to copy the mass copy of job requisition, so but as a bulk, if you want to copy, is it possible to copy the existing requisitions? You can copy, but when it is possible, if you enable mass copy job requisition, but maximum up to you can allow, you can at a time copy the requisitions at one single shot, 30 job requisitions mass copy you can perform. Okay, more than 30 you cannot do that, so you have to go and enable, or you can enter the digit how many copy or mass copy job requisitions at a time you want to copy. So you can just go and enter, or if you are leaving it blank, automatically you can if it is enabled, so you can maximum enable. But if you want to restrict the certain digit to copy the mass copy requisitions, you can go and enter. So is another option that we can go and enable. And then let us also move on to the, let us say, agency. There is a setting we have yeah, so you can just see that enable recruitment agency, right? So there is a setting that you can just see, enable recruiting agency. That means, do you want to enable the agency portal? If you want to enable agency portals, but sometimes some requisition XML, we have a requisition XML template, right? So there also some setup is required to enable agency posting. But this first you have to enable, but we also have some other extra setup should be done for the agency setup, for enabling your agency posting. So we will be doing that when we go to the agency concept in the recruitment classes, so everything will be very clear. And then we have something like, if you remember, I was explaining you the password policy login setting, right? So even you can just see there is a setting, enable separate password policy for external candidates. That means this allows you define a different password policy for external candidates than your SuccessFactors HCM users. That means this is only for external candidates. This separate password policy you want to use it. This separate password policy is only for external candidates, not for internal candidates. That is why I said if you want to define a different password policy for external candidates, not for the SuccessFactors HCM users. That means your own client employees. And we have one more last option which you also have to enable, which is a enable offer approval. So this is another setting we have to enable as a prerequisite, though it is not critical, but still we have to enable. So this offer approval functionality, you know, the users with the permission who are having to create offer approval records, and where you can specify the list of approvers. And but of course, even for this enable offer approval concept to work this functionalities properly in the system, there also we have some additional XML setup also we have, because we also have offer approval XML template also, right? So even there also we have to go and do that, so then only everything will be working. So sorry. So whatever the settings, whatever the features I have been explaining till now, all these are some of the important settings I wanted to explain today to as a prerequisite to work your recruitment product in a successful manner. So these are all some of the critical settings, and optional or not critical settings we have concentrated. But now, after this, before we move on to configure all that, roadmaps, maybe rating scales, enabling language packs, or maybe configuring your pick list. But before we move on, and we also have one more thing that we should always keep in mind, and you should at least by heart, uh, we call it as a operators, right? So we have something called recruiting operators, because we have many permissions, and or we can say routing roadmaps. We have something called, right, roadmaps for the routing capabilities in a success factors recruitment management are controlled based on the user relationship to the requisition record. We have a requisition XML template. The requisition XML template is something where it is going to establish the relationship between the recruiter and to the user. But every employee cannot have it, right? We are going to control with the permissions. How? With the help of these operators. So what are the operators functionality? Which means in which are all the areas we will be working on the operators we have for recruitment in a in the XML template. But these operators functionalities we are going to configure which are the areas. For example, the first one is in a requisition roadmaps, we will be using it. And even in the requisition XML, what do you call, there is something called field permissions. Or let us see the areas where you are going to configure the operators. I'll tell you what are the operators we have. Or requisition XML, we can say feature permissions. I think some of you know about corporate data model, succession data model. And if you remember the employee profile, I explained you in employee is central. And even that is also prerequisite for a recruitment also. If you remember, there also we have some permissions we have configured, right? So now we have a requisition XML feature permission. This is also another area where you will be configuring these operators for to set up the permission. And we have another thing is as a button permissions. So this is also another area where we'll be configuring in the requisition XML template. And again, we have another one as a application template, right? We have application XML template. So let me copy this. So please do remember all these points I am explaining, because you'll be sometimes asked to which are all the areas that you have worked on these XML what do you call sorry, these operators that you have used. So you should explain all these. So even you'll be getting in the certification also. And even in XML application XML field permissions also, you'll be using these operations. And again, we will use this application XML template in the what do you call there also we have some button permissions also. So I'll be explaining all these gradually, and I'm sure it's going to be easy for you to understand. So these are all some of the areas that the operators you are going to concentrate. So now I'm going to show you the, please note it down. You'll be using the operators in the requisition roadmaps, in the requisition XML field permissions, requisition XML feature permissions. You'll be using it in a requisition XML button permissions, and you'll be using this application XML field permission and application XML button permissions. So I'm going to give you some of the recruiting operators. For example, we have operators like O, some of them I'm giving you, or we have something called a G, and we have something called a or, we have something called a T, yes, and GRT, or we will say W. Okay, so here, what is the operator O stands for, which is a originator. Okay, and the G, what is the operator G stands for, which is means hiring manager. And the operation which R stands for recruiter. And the operation T stands for I think it is a coordinator. And then operation S stands for sourcer. And W, the operation stands for, which is for a second recruiter. So now you can just see that O originator, G hiring manager, recruiter, T coordinator, sourcer, and second recruiter. See, we have some more also, but some of the most important things I'm telling you. But you please note it down, which is very important to that. We have a number of them here, right? But most importantly, that most used operators are, which is R, which is a recruiter, and then we have another one is a hiring manager. So, but I have some note for you. I think let me take it from the system. I have created some of the operators I have for you. Let me show you. Now you can just see that originator, hiring manager, recruiter, coordinator, sourcer, and second recruiter, staffing. Now you can just see the relationship that you are going to use, XM. What is this X digit stands for? The operator. That means RM, recruiting manager, RMM, recruiting manager's manager. And you can just see if it is not XM, or let us take GM, general manager, or GMM, general manager. So that's how that you are going to show the operator relationship that where you can establish and you can understand. So today we have completely concentrated on two areas, and where this will establish a continuation and a smooth configuration of your recruitment configurations that we have started with the critical settings that you have to enable for recruitment management, and not critical settings that we have to enable. So we have concentrated on that, and along with that we have also done with the operators that we have. And I want everyone to by heart all these, so that this will help you so much, right? So those who have any questions and all, you can please let me know, and we will meet again in the next class.